What a fantastic episode. I think the grin and the punch just completely made the entire episode. Now, granted, early on, I was really kind of assuming a lot of my discussion would be around Yor. I'm glad that we finally got some insight into Yor as a mother, which we honestly, at this point, have never really gotten anything from her. All we gotten from her is that she desires to protect the people around her, and that's really it. Just her trying to fit in with this new family setup. And now we really have her going, I want to be a mother. This is something I want to do. I know this is only temporary, but I kind of want to be more of a mother for Anya, which was fantastic. I like this idea that, again, despite the fact that Lloyd is doing all this for his mission, he's still having some conflicts there. He's still getting the family ties grabbing into him, and he can't really control that. But additionally, Yor believes this is all temporary, so I shouldn't get too involved. But now she's feeling like this is something that I like. This is something that I want to protect. This is something I want to be a part of. And that's really fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that moment where possibly Yor, again, not knowing that Lloyd is doing this all for this mission and that Lloyd is not Anya's father, that she finally comes in and says, look, I want to make this permanent, and how that affects Lloyd. Again, it's the goofy shenanigans, it's all this other stuff around this one major internal conflict, which is, why don't we just be a family? Is there something wrong with this continuing on beyond just this mission or just this agreement? But yeah, getting up to that point, getting the uniform, having somebody really kind of instilling upon Anya that there's bullying, there's a class system within the school, all this stuff that is terrifying Anya. And yes, additionally, the fact that they are going to this prestigious school, that having this uniform on is a target on Anya's back. And so after they go to this little shopping mart, which is really funny, having this little girl that's in this uniform that signifies that they're a rich family going into some random like rundown supermarket. And then yeah, Anya getting kidnapped. Yes, really setting off Yor just going into full on action mode and just tearing up these guys. This is the point where I'm like, oh yeah, this episode's fantastic. Like, here we go again. Here's Spy X Family being at its greatest and having Yor just come in and punch right through this watermelon and say, if you want to get splattered just like this, get that guy out of here. But no, just also her saying, I am her mother. Like they're constantly thinking, well, she must be a maid or somebody that's sent with her. There's no way some rich mother would go to the supermarket. And sure enough, when they're talking about how this maid needs to give her money, and yeah, that they're possibly gonna have to take her uniform to sell that, it sets Yor off. It was so fantastic. Like instilling fear through power alone, it was so good. I like that. Like following this, she feels like she's a defeated person. Like I ruined all the vegetables. I'm a terrible mother. And then Anya being like, no, I love a mother that is strong and cool. You did a good thing kind of thing. And I just love that. I love the bonding that we got. This very brief but very loving bond that we've already kind of established between Yor and Anya, which again, sadly up until this point, we really haven't really had. Yor's just kind of been there as sort of a consequence to everything else. And now we're finally getting into Yor, and I really do love that. Yes, this obviously leads into Anya asking Yor to train her to fight because she's afraid of the bullies and stuff that she's getting into, which is a huge mistake. No, from the outside perspective is a huge mistake, but when we see the result, it's actually a good thing. So they go through the whole little training montage, and then that comes to pretty much the opening ceremony of everything, which they come there, and we get an insight into Lloyd essentially having done things in the background in order to put the right pieces into play. Lloyd wants a plan B, essentially, because he doesn't believe that Anya will get the merits to become a scholar to be in one of these meetings with Desmond, so he wants a plan B, that he will set up Anya to be with the second son of Desmond, which is Damien. And of course Damien's a total jerk. Of course he's a total jerk. But yeah, the idea is that if they can become friends in the same class, then he can go to their house and meet him that way. Which, again, doesn't really turn out right. I almost thought that they were going to point out specifically that it really did feel like everybody else had the same mindset. Or at least maybe even Donovan had the same mindset as when, yes, Anya gets into the class that Damien is in. Additionally, there's a lot of other very important kids in that particular class. One being Becky, who is the daughter of some like military producer or something like that. And also some other additional very important kids. And Lloyd's just kind of foaming at the mouth like, yes, you can get friends with all of them. I'll have tons of access to information. This is a good thing. But no, the entire time Anya's reading everybody's mind and saying, bleh, no. Like even with Damien, he's like, oh, she's obviously head over heels for me already, but then she's like, yeah, which is great. And even Becky immediately is like, this kid's like a baby. I'm going to totally be friends with her. She's like, bleh. Thankfully, Henry is their teacher, which is fantastic. I was happy to see him continue in the show. I kind of assumed it would be, but obviously explained to them the idea that you can get merits to become a scholar, but also demerits to get expelled. And I knew the moment they mentioned the demerits, I'm like, she's going to get some wrath about. Like, I knew by the end of this episode, she was going to have at least one demerit. She almost got 3, but yeah, that leads into their first kind of formal meeting between Damien, Becky, and Anya. He comes to Anya saying, look, if your parents are really important, I might be your friend. And she's like, oh, well, he's a psychiatrist. Well, he said something else, but yeah, that leads to some other kids saying you should learn your place because she wanted to go to his. Immediately says, I want to go to your house. You should know your place, and pushes her. And then yes, despite the fact that she was going to employ all these skills that Yor taught her, the important thing is not to use her strength against people unless it's necessary. And this leads to the alternative, which is to smile to diffuse the situation. And Anya deploys the best smile that she could have, which is what most would define as a smirk or grin, and that is just absolutely priceless. I seen some people on Twitter last week saying I cannot wait to see them adapt this, and I seen the picture, so I was kind of expecting it, but yeah, that was priceless, because the way that they pulled it off, because she does the grin, it makes him mad, and then Becky's over here thinking like, oh, she's actually way more mature than I thought she was. She's fantastic. And then Anya's like, oh, really? And then goes back to do it again, which is just absolutely great. It was perfect. It was so perfectly pulled off. It's a super grinny, creepy looking face, but at the same time it's Anya, so it works out to be super cute. And this leads into the hallway scene, which I think is like the third great moment of this episode, and having them really pushing Anya's buttons, and then finally she just lets him have it. Just lets him have it, like, right across the cheek and sends him flying. I almost thought that she was going to claim, like, a little girl couldn't do this. What are you talking about? But no, it kind of turns this whole thing where she was attaching something that Yor said about only using strength to protect friends, and then immediately saying, oh, it's because he stepped on Becky's foot. And then that becomes elegant, which did get her only 1 demerit rather than 3, like they typically do for violence. But that was too good. That clonk was like, yes, yes. I don't think anybody out there is against clonking a bully. So that worked out in the end. And yes, that it essentially wins over Becky, because Becky's like, oh, you did that to protect me. I care for you so much. Anya has won over Becky. Has lost a lot of points with Damien, so that's a big negative. I like that in the beginning of the hallway scene, Anya immediately calls Yor a liar, like smiling didn't help. She's a liar. It's like, no, girl, you're doing it wrong. That's not a smile. But yeah, overall, absolutely fantastic episode. Really did enjoy it. Like I said, I think the pinnacle thing here is, one, yes, establishing Yor as a character as more than just a sidelining character, which again, at this point, we really haven't got much out of her. Now we really do see her coming into play as a motherly figure, as somebody that does want to be more for Anya than just a temporary mom. She, again, is coming into this from a perspective of being a temporary for this whole thing, but I think because she's becoming attached to Anya, she wants to be more than that. She's discovering this maternal instincts that really are coming to play and wanting to be more for Anya than just temporary. But yes, of course, also establishing what I'm assuming will be a chemistry going forward, which is Becky and Damien and Anya, which I think is going to be fantastic. Obviously, Becky really kind of becoming very attached to Anya at the same time. This desire to want to be friends with somebody that you actually hate, which is, I feel bad for Anya. Again, we have to constantly remind ourselves that Anya is a child. Yes, she does technically have this power, and she does have a little tap into extra information that does make her make quick choices, even though she is a child, but she's still a child. And so kind of expecting this from her and having to deal with bullies is hopefully will be not a painful experience, because bullying is never fun, but obviously she can handle herself. So let's make clear that she can obviously handle herself at this point. Even though she only had 1 training session with Yor, she's already got a very powerful punch, but it'll be interesting to see how she can mend that relationship with Damien, and if she wants to. But yeah, fantastic episode. Really loved it. Looking forward to more. such a great show. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Share this video if you can. It does definitely help us out, and we definitely appreciate it. Also, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to support Small, we have a Patreon link and tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate everybody that supports us, and y'all take care.